have a question on the topic of communication with God. So I know we already had a question on this previously, but I just want to talk more about it. So the question is, how does God communicate with us? Or how does the white paper communicate with the moon? So I know that in this question, I'm sort of creating a duality between the self and God. But then again, at the end of the Q&A yesterday, you talked about this prayer that you say to yourself every night for the past 40 years while you're praying to God. And then you say that even now, you still give thanks to God. So that's...
You did?
It wasn't in this retreat, but it was in the previous...
No, I think I said it yesterday, didn't I?
Yes. In the meeting yesterday, you said that you still say the prayer.
We ended with that prayer, didn't we?
Yeah, we did every night.
At the live stream, I think.
Yes, and in the previous meeting, you said, I still give thanks to God to this day, even though I know that we are one. Okay, so that's us talking, the moon talking to the paper, but what about the other way around? How does it communicate with the moon? And this question came up when you talked about the story about Muhammad when he wanted to become a great orator, and then later in his life, he found God. And then I remember when you said the story, you said, then God spoke to Muhammad and said, well, no, you have to use your skills to do my work as well. And it made me think about all these stories from the Bible that we grew up with. And in the Bible, God is always speaking to someone. So he's speaking to Adam and Eve, and he's speaking to Moses. Like it's a literal voice talking to them. And I don't know the Bhagavad Gita that much, but I understand it's a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. And I thought to myself, it's a great story, but how does that look like in our actual experience? Because when we go into being, then it's just complete silence. So are these stories not, I guess we're not meant to take them literally? Are they just metaphors or symbols for something else, trying to evoke something beyond words? Or what are the ways in which the white paper can speak to us? Is it an actual voice, like you literally hear a voice talking to you, or is it through other ways?
Well, God makes its presence felt in the finite mind, if we're making a concession to the existence of the finite mind. When God makes its existence, registers its presence in the finite mind in the form of the experience of peace, joy, love, enthusiasm, intuition. These are experiences that the finite mind believes take place inside itself. So this is the white paper in the painting appearing as the moon. So we as people tend to think that peace and happiness and joy and love are experiences that take place inside us as a person. No, they don't take place inside us. They are in your terminology, that they are the shining of God's presence seemingly inside the finite mind. So in the same way that the white paper makes its presence felt in the landscape in the form of the full moon, so God's presence makes itself felt in the finite mind in the form of peace.
Okay, so all those stories about God actually talking to someone, we should translate that as the feeling of peace and intuition in an actual lived experience.
Well, it's also possible that intelligence, if we think of God or consciousness as intelligence rather than peace or joy or love, because it is also pure intelligence, it's also possible that pure intelligence reveals itself in the finite mind in a language that the finite mind understands, namely words. So it would be possible for infinite intelligence, which is God's nature, to appear in the mind not just as a feeling of peace or happiness, but as words. In other words, infinite intelligence has assumed the form of words. It has appeared in a way that is understandable by the finite mind. So it could appear in the form of words, literally in the form of a voice. You could hear a voice in your mind that brought intelligence into your mind that comes from outside the narrow sphere of your mind. In other words, you have this intuition, or you even hear a voice that brings something new into your mind that your mind could never have thought of by itself if it only referred to its own internal content. You have this intuition, very occasionally in the form of a voice, that seems to bring knowledge or information from outside your finite mind into your finite mind, but in such a way that your finite mind can understand, in other words, words. So that's... there are some dreams, for instance, that are like this. I refer to them as luminous dreams. Dreams that are more than just the content of your own finite mind reappearing to itself. A dream sometimes brings knowledge into your finite mind of an intelligence that your finite mind doesn't normally have access to. So there's an intelligence outside your finite mind, inside infinite consciousness, of course, outside your finite mind that presents itself in your mind in the form of an image that gives your mind access to an intelligence that it doesn't normally have access to, in this case in the form of an image or a dream. Well, that would be another way that intelligence or love shrinks itself into the finite mind to give the finite mind knowledge that it needs, that it doesn't normally have access to.
And just to be clear, when you say present itself as a voice, this is different to just having a thought in your head, right? You literally hear a voice. That's not a thought produced.
You could do. You could do. I'm just saying it would be possible. Some people, I'm sure many people here have had perhaps rare occasions in their life when they hear a voice in their mind, which isn't just their own thoughts, thinking, but it's almost as if somebody else has said something to them. It seems to be more than just the content of their own thoughts. We all hear our thoughts all the time, but sometimes there can be a voice in your head that is not just the voice in your mind, that is not just the voice of your own thoughts, that seems to come from somewhere that's outside your own thoughts. That would be what this kind of voice. It could happen. Has anyone here had an experience like that? Yes, you see plenty of people, exactly. It's not an experience that everyone has, but it's quite common. And you think, wow, where did that come from? I've never thought of that before. That wasn't just a continuation of my own thought process. That was an intervention of some intelligence into my mind that came from beyond my mind, but that it gave my mind essential information that it needs now. It's inspiration. That is, in religious language, God speaking to you. Infinite intelligence infiltrating the finite mind on its own terms in order to give it some essential information that it needs at that time. In a religious context, you could call that God speaking to you. Infinite intelligence, assuming the form of your finite mind.